Thank you, Richa, for joining us in our culture awareness video series. And my name is Danit, and I'm a cross-cultural coach. Besides all my things that I'm doing, like everyone, we're doing so many things. But I'm really passionate about cultures and how to create cultural awareness. And the reason is that we're here, we're in the United States. Many of us moved from other countries, and we try to adjust to the area. And we're always trying to adjust to the area. Even after 10 years, sometimes something happened and I'm like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that, or that's something that reminded me that I'm not from here. And that's fine. This is who we are. We have two culture, beautiful culture that are merged together. And but one of the things that I realized that we don't know enough about other cultures. Mm-hmm. And that's why we started this video series, just to understand more about culture. I think it will help to create more connectedness between people and just to feel more at ease to ask questions. So let's start by sharing who you are, where are you from?
First off, I'd like to say thank you, Danit, for having me on. And I think this is really something very important and much needed that you're doing. Also, I find that a lot of people, the politer ones especially, are very hesitant to ask about cultures because they're afraid of giving offense. And a lot of people just don't know a lot about different cultures. So I think this is a great way to introduce them to it in a very, very friendly, easy way.
Thank you.
So my name is Richa Dubey. I moved here with my family a little over 4 years ago from India. And I am Indian. I was born and brought up in North India. By profession, I'm basically a communication consultant, but I spent the last 10 years of my life focused on social impact and brought whatever skills I can bear to it.
Originally, I was planning on doing this talk with another lady, your friend, and we decided to do a separate one for each of you because India is so big with so many cultures and traditions. And I just wanted to understand more about that.
So you're right in that India is actually home to a very, very old multicultural tradition. We have over 22 different distinct languages and many, many hundreds of dialects within it. And these languages are they come with their own sort of culture, right? So it's not just the language, it's what you wear, it's what you eat, it is the kind of festivals you celebrate, how you celebrate the same festivals differently, lots of little things that you may do on a daily basis at home or not do. So there is really no one sort of starting point for it. It's just, think of India as a conglomeration of many, many different cultures and countries, if you will, in one.
Okay, so if we have someone that is not from India, and how can he distinguish? Does he need to distinguish, or it's something that you can say, oh, I know that this person is from one part of India or one culture of India, and this one is not. But for people who are from outside of India, for them, everyone is India. Is that fine?
Well, from a very, very broad perspective, it is fine. But if you're trying to understand cultural details, so for instance, there is one perception that most Indians are vegetarian, which is a very popular perception, and it is untrue. 70% of India eats meat. there is a perception that Indians do not eat beef. That is also untrue. We have different religions in India. We've got, Buddhism was born over there, Jainism was born over there. We have Zoroastrians, we have Hindus, we have Muslims, we have one of the older Christian communities in the world. One tradition holds that we've had Christians since Thomas the Apostle came to India in 52 AD. So when white Americans ask me if I celebrate Christmas, I just look at them and I say yes.
If you celebrate Christmas?
If you celebrate Christmas in India. Okay. And I didn't know what to say to that. And I felt like saying yes, well, before America started celebrating Christmas. But yeah, we do. We have Jews, we have, name a major world religion and you'll find them in India. Right. So partly because of different religions, partly because India historically has also been home to several migrations. And we had Macedonians coming in with Alexander the Great. We had a lot of people from Central Asia with all of the Central Asian invasions. We had Mongols, we had the so-called Aryan invasion, which has now been debunked. But so we've had people of most kinds of ancestry coming into India over the centuries.
So when you moved to this area, was it important to you to find people from India who are from the same area or same culture as you?
Not exactly, but that is partly because of my upbringing. I was an army brat, so I am used to being in different cities and different cultures and different places. But yes, it is nice to connect to people who speak the same language, not just in terms of the same language as I speak literally in terms of, I speak Hindi, but also in terms of the shared cultural language. So there is a shared experience, there is a shared cultural experience that there are jokes that you would not get. There are references that you would not get, just like I will not get a lot of, say, baseball references or a lot of, I will get some of the popular cultural references, but I may not get baseball references. I may not get American football references, so because I haven't grown up with those. So it's always nice to connect to someone with a shared experience. So in a certain era, people of a certain age group grew up the same way. We all had very, very similar upbringings, right? So it's always good to sort of connect about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's so important for us to feel connected.
Yeah.
So how is time understood and measured in India or in the area that you grew up?
Well, okay, I grew up in an army household, so I understand time very differently. I hate being late. So like I was running 5 minutes late for our interview. So I will, message you and say, I'm sorry, I'm running 5 minutes late. But by and large in India, we're very, very, a nice way to say it would be flexible. We're always running late. So for instance, in India, if someone invites you over for, say, dinner, and they say, oh, come at 7:30, they're not expecting you before 8:30. So
it's a bit different from here.
Yes. And the flip side of it is actually really lovely. I mean, it isn't as formal. So you can, just drop in without notice to a friend's house, say, give me a cup of tea and then stay on for dinner or stay on for lunch. Or it isn't that planned. Our relationships and the way we play out isn't that structured. And the line between, say, acquaintances, friends, and colleagues is a little blurry. So you don't compartmentalize everything so strictly. So it's common to party with colleagues. It's totally fine to, you meet someone, and it's a good fun group, and you say, oh, let's hang out and come over home. So this whole thing of having people over home, which you really, really don't do in American culture very easily. You don't invite people over to your home, uh, is something that I've had to get used to, because I'm so used to just, oh yeah, we met. Okay, let's go and have a cup of tea at your place. That's so common.
So true. It's so hard sometimes to get used to something like that when you're used to something else. And that's probably why is the reason that we really love hanging out with people from our culture.
Absolutely. And so,
Similarity.
yeah, because with them there is that comfort of, even if you don't know them very well, you'll be like, oh, yeah. For instance, one other thing that I find very strange is that I took getting used to, was that in India, anyone comes home. Anyone. It doesn't matter who they are or what they're for. The least you will do, absolutely the least you will do, is offer them a drink of water, offer them something to eat, maybe a cup of tea. You will at least offer.
Mm-hmm.
And whether it is the electrician who's coming in or the plumber, you'll say, would you like a cup of tea? At least have some water. It's a hot day. And that kind of hospitality is so ingrained that the first time there was someone mowing the lawn outside our town home, and I offered them a cup of coffee and a slice of cake, they were like, oh wow, like, really, is it that? So it takes getting used to.
So are you continued doing it?
Well, when someone is coming over to work at home, I always offer. So like the guys who come mow the lawn, I'll always offer them a cup of coffee or something to eat, or, and then they'll always say they're fine and they're good and, they don't need anything. But yeah,
That's beautiful.
that offer is there.
So how about play dates?
The play dates that I have had with American families, and honestly, because my daughter has had such a packed schedule since moving over here, there haven't been very many. Have been fairly easygoing, also partly because I really got along with mum, and we were just chatting, and we did have a fixed sort of time. So that was really nice. Um, and the same goes for the other couple of play dates I've done. So the mums have become friends, and therefore it's been pretty easy and very casual.
Exactly what I found. I found that, yes, we have the American way of doing playdates, for example, that it's framed by time. But once you know the parents and you offer something else or a different way, many of them just will say, yes, sure, she can stay until 6 o'clock.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's something that it's nice also to bring our culture.
Absolutely.
To the way we are behaving and with the way we are interacting with others.
I absolutely agree. And, obviously, given that life here is a lot more structured, I mean, I find myself not being able to do all that I want, because it does require planning, because everyone is working to a schedule. I find myself not being able to do as much as I would like to. But I do see that people will pick up what they find comfortable and what works for them. So I do see that people will adapt or, pick up or use whatever is working for them.
In your culture, is it polite to be straightforward, to say what you think?
Not always, no. Not always. So we
So to
will.
whom is it okay and to whom it's not?
So traditionally, we're a very, very hierarchical society, and that's how it plays out. whether it's age, whether it's class, whether it's, the whole sort of men versus women thing, it tends to play out in a certain manner. So the hierarchy is what works. Having said that, now that a lot of India has also moved to a nuclear family setup and is no longer in a joint family setup, when you're living with uncles and aunts and cousins, and sometimes you're closer to an aunt than to your mother, because you've been nursed by that aunt, or it's all of that. This used to be very, very common not so long ago, but with a lot of India now moving to cities and living in nuclear setups, there is more of a shift to, say, children challenging their parents about certain things, or with women starting to work a lot more outside the house and becoming financially independent. There are some challenges to the traditional male patriarchal kind of setup. And all of those, I think, are good things, though they do have their fallout. But overall, I think it's a good thing to happen.
So it's the same with how you perceive teachers.
Traditionally, and even to a large degree today, teachers have a lot of respect. They're revered. For instance, I can give my own example. Many years ago, I started learning the violin, and my teacher is only a few years older than I am, but he's very modern, and not that he asks for any sort of outward show of respect or whatever, but I touch his feet whenever we meet. So teachers have had a very, very revered place in Indian society.
The way they are perceiving teachers in India and in the United States, it's different.
Yes.
So is it hard or easier to adjust to more easygoing with the teachers?
So one thing that we're not used to in India, and again, this is not good or bad, it's just different, is that children do not address adults by first names, ever, ever. So to have a kindergartner calling me by my first name for the first time was a bit of a shock. Whoa, okay, So in India, you would always say, you would say auntie or uncle or different terms like chacha, mosi, whatever. We have different names for different relationships. It's not just uncle and aunt. Or you would, if it's on younger, then you're not young enough to be your child, they would address you as elder brother or elder sister. So that takes time getting used to. And teachers are always, sir or ma'am in India. And even when you get to college, you do have that carrying on to a large degree, at least while I was in college, which of course was a very long time ago. But yeah, I remember one of my resident tutors asking me to call her by name. I said, you know what, I think I'll do that after I finished college. I can't bring myself to address you by your first names yet. Let me just finish. So I felt a little strange about it. And she absolutely didn't. So it's also very personal, I suppose. And now, of course, I'm used to it, but yeah.
So I was called in one of the play date auntie, and I looked and I said, what? And then I realized that probably it's a way of, just to give me respect, or
yeah.
Maybe they don't know my name. So I said, no, you can call me Danit. And I don't think this girl felt comfortable doing it. And now I understand why.
Yes. So I don't feel comfortable with my daughter addressing other adults, by their first name. So I say, you just add a Ms. or a Mr. to their name, to their first name, to their last name, whatever. You just cannot call them by their first name. So I feel deeply uncomfortable doing that. And I realize that a lot of people don't, you just say, oh my God, uncle, auntie, I'm not your aunt or I'm not your uncle or whatever. But this for me is a safe compromise, I'm like, you can say Ms. Tiffany or Ms. Kirkpatrick, or, however you address your teacher, that's fine.
And also in playdates?
Absolutely.
So how in your culture people express disappointment, anger? Do you see it by the body language, the tone? Is it different from here?
I'd say we use a lot more body language, more facial expressions, possibly more voice modulation, all of that, all of those sort of non-spoken cues. We're a lot more gestural and a lot more sort of expressive with facial cues and body language.
So it was hard to get used to the polite way that sometimes you can see here.
Yes. I still don't necessarily, I don't realize I'm doing it. I still don't necessarily fit in with the very sort of, I don't wear the mask very well.
I can relate to that because I'm the same. You moved to this area 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago.
4.5 years ago.
Yeah. And you moved from India?
Yes.
How was it, the adjustment to the culture?
Well, I hated the first 6 months. I was miserable. And partly because of, I think, the Seattle freeze, partly because we landed up here in December. And this constant anxiety, which was caused by over-processing of what everyone was saying, to say, are they really saying what they're saying, or are they saying something else? And this is me, and I'm very comfortable with the language. And I was just thinking, for immigrants who are not comfortable with the language, it must be a very anxious time, the first 6 months, the first year away from your own culture and the comfort that comes with it. Because you're learning constantly. For 20 years of my life, I've driven on the left side of the road in a right-hand drive. It may seem like a small thing, but just to be able to get my license, my driver's license, within the first month was a huge achievement for me. And just getting used to driving on the other side of the road in a left-hand drive after 20 years of driving the other way with different traffic rules, driving, your left turns are free in India, right turns are free over here. So just getting used to just one small thing was huge.
And you said that you arrived speaking English fluently, and that's one of the reasons is because in India you speak English and you speak your Hindi or a different language.
Yes, that's right.
So in my workshop, when I do workshop with international families, with newcomers, I always say, you may know English, but you don't know American.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you felt when you arrived. You know the language, you know what they say.
Yes.
But sometimes it's hard to understand it.
Absolutely. I mean, small things like, I remember the first time I came across this response to a simple thank you. I said thank you, and someone said, you bet. I'm like, huh? What do you bet? Why are you betting? I just said thank you. So, what you bet? So it took me a while to, what does it really mean? What is he saying? So it's, yes.
You have a daughter, right?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so how was it for her, the adjustment?
Well, children are very resilient, and she adjusted pretty well. When she came here, she didn't really speak a word of English because I had very consciously not spoken with her in English. I wanted her to learn Hindi first. So preschool was tough because she didn't speak English initially, but kids pick up so fast.
I know
And
she speaks Hindi and English.
she speaks Hindi and English. And now her Hindi has gotten rusty because I have to keep reminding her to speak in Hindi. We try and speak in Hindi mostly. But what is happening is she's responding in English now. So we're trying to fix that.
Yeah, it's a battle, but I think if you win it, you're all going to win.
Mm-hmm.
That because the gift of two languages is priceless.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I completely agree with you.
I have to say that one of the tricks that I had with my kids is that, you have to share. I'm from Israel. You have to share in Hebrew. You have to speak Hebrew. Or, I don't understand. What did you say? Can you repeat that in Hebrew? And
I'm
they're
doing yes.
in the face.
Yes. I do that with her.
But they reply, and it's the gift. And one of the things that we want our kids is when they're going back, traveling and visiting the family, we want them to speak the language.
Absolutely. And I find that this year, of course, because of the COVID situation, is not happening. But every time I go to India, the first 15 days, she's a little hesitant. By the end of it, she is totally into Hindi, especially when we're visiting with, because with grandparents, with uncles, aunts, everyone is speaking in Hindi. And they had to make a special effort to speak with her in English because they don't speak English on a day-to-day basis at home.
You said that you're working here. Was it hard to find a job?
I am working in the sense that I've started my own business. Finding a job is very hard. So what I did do was I did the odd consultancy, but I wanted to stay with the work I have already done and not switch gears midway, which a lot of people have done or have had to do. So I didn't want to do that. And also my daughter was very young and, So I finally started my own business, which is something I'm very passionate about. And here we are.
Can you share about your business?
Yes, I have a bit of a background in textiles and handicrafts. So what I do is I work with local weavers, local silver enamel workers, wooden lacquer workers, all of these traditional crafts in India, which are currently in danger of dying out. And I bring those pieces, curate them, sometimes co-create them, and I bring them over to Seattle and retail them. Sometimes I do trunk shows, sometimes I talk about a particular craft, sometimes I talk about a particular weave, what goes into it, what is the cultural background, what the politics of it are, how it is made, what it represents. So yeah, I enjoy doing that.
You taught me a lot, I have to say. I always amazed by how many things we learn from people. And just curiosity is the name of the game. Just to ask out of curiosity.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think any question which comes from a place of genuinely wanting to know and genuine curiosity is almost never offensive. It's almost never a negative, and people would love to share. And in fact, I have a lot of questions about Hebrew culture because the only song that I know is Hava Nagila.
My daughters sing it all the time.
But yes, I would so love to learn more. And
So you need to wait for our video about Israel, because we'll have it as well.
lovely, lovely.
You said that you love sharing. Did it happen to you that people came and asked you about your culture, or
Yes.
why things are doing in this way or not in a different way?
Well, sometimes people do ask, but not very often. What I did do was I have run a couple of workshops, one at the Redmond Library, which is similar to what you are doing, but also different because it's in a more sort of interpersonal setting. It's called The Story of Us. So we basically share a story around an object of personal and cultural significance. And then we map how the significant things in life are actually very common for all of us, no matter where we come from, whether you're from Norway, whether you're from India, whether you're from Eritrea. It doesn't matter. Things that are dear to you because of the values they represent. When you get down to it, the values are common across cultures. I'm in fact intensely interested in learning about just people's lives and how they grew up and what made them who they are, and where they're coming from, what they're thinking.
Yeah, I'm the same, and I'm happy that you did this workshop, and I'm sure people just opened up and shared, because you have a personality that just invite us to share.
Thank you so much. I think you're much the same, and I'd love to meet you once all of this is done.
Yes, once COVID-19 is not here anymore.
Yes.
Hopefully winter time.
Hopefully.
Great. Thank you very much, Richa.
Thank you so
And
much.
I'm really waiting to go to your link and see about your work.
I will share it with you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Take it. Bye.